So good morning. I tried to give this to my neighbor, Bill, and 441 Como. Important. For your own good, read this 11-page letter sent to CPD and neighbors. Reward and no jail in exchange for help. I'll pretend I'm Bill. And what do we have? Return twice. Once in, you can see the dates here and here. April and June. It's still closed. It's a little ripped at that one corner, but it is still in the container or envelope. To Rachel, Patty, Arvid, Bill, Etta, Wade, Bernie, Melaine, and Claire. CC email, Officers Lutz, Myers, Hicks, and Connor. Over the last number of years, there have been some neighborhood occurrences that targeted me and created numerous obstacles in my life. I've asked many times for neighbors to be an adult and answer my questions through emails, phone messages, mailed letters, and messenger, because their answers are clues to solving some serious crimes that could result in life in prison if someone is charged. Several of you hold keys to my freedom, and I need your honest answers now. I will start with events from the beginning, and then list what I need from each of you. Since none of you have responded when individually approached, I figured a group correspondence would be more effective, since there is evidence connecting people's actions to each other. I will not stand being rudely ignored any longer and dismissed because of a mental illness that Patty caused. How insulting. I also experienced many home invasions, had stolen mail that was returned weeks later, have proof of attempted murder, and have DNA evidence of people who illegally entered my home. I have filed a total of 69 reports with the FBI. That number's now 73. So it's better to underestimate. And they have failed to respond. I have tried for 3.5 years to get help from the Division of Police, and they have ignored me and prevented me from reporting the crimes, profiling me, and being lazy and not listening. I need to speak with whomever is connected to giving false information about me to neighbors, which includes having a mental illness in the past. I had no diagnosis until neighbors started calling the police and lying to them to get me repeatedly evaluated. The mental illness diagnosis has ruined my life, and it has all been caused by neighbors. The police treat me like an untouchable, not wanting anything to do with the crimes that have occurred. One morning, in spring or summer before 2017, I found Bill of 441 Como Avenue standing in my backyard with my gate closed, peering west down the alley near Abby and Jason's garage. I quickly came up from the basement where I viewed him and went outside. I stood up on a chair around my fire pit and saw Bill staring at my property. He turned away and I said loudly, "Sir, sir, sir." He never turned around and walked into his home. Weeks following the incident, I found Bill standing in the street at my driveway, staring up at my house, then standing in Arvid's and Rachel's driveway, doing the same thing, stalking me. Bill also made friends that season with the older man who lives in the beige house on Midgard, east of the home across the street from Patty. Memorial Day 2017. I foolishly allowed people to rent rooms in my home. Bill befriended one of them named Ryan Dillaha. The other one I kicked out and is not liked at all by Patty, who went over to Arvid's one day and someone said loud enough for him to hear, "Here we go again." I was unaware that there is a standard to be met for guests to visit me in this exclusive neighborhood. If someone has a problem with my guests, they better talk to me about it, instead of making my friends feel uncomfortable or watched whenever they visit. I told Ryan that I was not having a good relationship with Bill and his wife behind me. She jumped backwards in the alley when I extended my hand to shake it, with another neighbor present, because we had not met. The last week before the eviction date, Ryan invited Bill and his son into my home while I was outside. They did something inside for about 10 minutes and then walked out the front door. I suspect Ryan showed Bill drugs of his, said they were mine, and that I was a drug dealer because he knew I was kicking him out of my home. Labor Day 2017, I won a judgment against Ryan for $2,000 for unpaid utilities and rent in civil court. A few months after he left, I got 2 separate texts from him, from 2 different phone numbers. One said, "Are you still living on Midgard?" And the other said, "Did the plan work?" I provided the FBI and the police with the phone number he texted from. Based on the friendship Ryan and Bill made, I can only assume that Ryan set me up, and Bill is responsible for disseminating rumors, or lies, that have circulated around our neighborhood, beginning with Patty and Etta. I told Patty that I was having trouble with Bill and his wife one day, and the very next morning, Patty was walking in the alley with her dog and stopped off to visit the lovely couple. I saw her through the slats in my back fence. I believe Patty was told some things about me that originated from Ryan. Bill then must have continued his smear campaign by sharing the same information with Etta at 437 Como, because I was stalked for weeks for no reason by a redhead with a mustache, creepily giving my location while outdoors on my own property to a man on a cell phone. Then there was a barbecue one spring weekend at 437 Como. It had a drunk woman, some men, and Bernie and Melaine in attendance. For 2.5 hours she said, "That faggot, that whore, look at this video." The men who were around the fire in their yard nicknamed me Nature Boy, because I go barefoot in the summer on my property. Since I was the topic of the males' conversation, I can safely assume that the drunkard was talking about me. That was the extent of conversation at the barbecue, and I sat stunned 30 feet away in my own backyard listening to it all. The following weekend, the same attendees of the barbecue at 437 Como were at a barbecue in Bernie and Melaine's backyard. I rented out the spare bedroom of my home to Ryan, and my home has only one window on the second floor that faces Como. I have large pine trees in my backyard and cannot see Etta's property from the window, but you can see into Bill's backyard. Logic says that the video was staged of Ryan doing something, and Bill or his wife recording it, and then them sharing the video with the guests at the barbecue, claiming it was me. I have always slept in the larger master bedroom off the prettier front of my property. One morning I texted Patty about a drone flying in her yard with a searchlight that shone onto Abby and Jason's home and then onto mine. I never got a response, to my text. But 10 minutes after the text, 437 Como Avenue's garage door opened and a circle of people appeared, clapping out of sync, and one man saying, "Tonight! We're going to get him tonight." Logic says that Patty called either Etta or the man directly. I think her boyfriend at the time, because it was not the redhead, who I think is her son, about the drone in her yard. I suspect that surveillance was asked of the male who spoke in the circle of people. Further proof of his illegal services were requested of the neighbors is when I was trimming my bush atop my alley fence. A younger dark-haired man spoke with Bill's wife in the alley, saying, "Oh yeah, if he does meth, we'll definitely find out about it." Since there was only outdoor stalking performed from Abby and Jason's porch, Patty's porch, and Arvid's windows stalking me, the only way someone would be able to learn what happens inside of my home is through illegal surveillance, and they use remote neural monitoring, which is used by federal officers and military personnel, as it is considered a military-grade weapon. Because Bill and his wife are hermits and never have any guests, I suspect the group using R&M comes from Etta, since the young man walked with Bill's wife into her backyard. Etta may have sent the young man next door to talk to Bill's wife. The young man was never seen on Midgard. It is possible, too, that Patty found the group, too, because she contacted police and Netcare repeatedly. From Arvid's property, some odd things occurred. One day while Arvid was not home, an older man with a white beard stood in his backyard and held a professional camera over his head and took pictures of me in my driveway. After about 15 clicks, I walked up to the fence and asked him if he wanted to borrow my ladder to get a better view. The man left Arvid's backyard after my question. Then for a 3 to 4 week period, two men, one blonde and shorter, and one skinny and taller with curly dark hair, would stand to the sides of Arvid's second-floor windows and stare at me in my driveway for extended periods of time. Arvid also had, quote, meetings in his backyard with neighbors on Como who live close to where Kathy lives, a little west of Etta's property. Arvid assured me in a voicemail from March 23, 2019, that nobody was talking about me in the neighborhood. That was a lie, as I found evidence on the Google group of Arvid Warning K. Robinson that I read the threads of emails, in other words, to keep it secret that I am being talked about. Because of the home invasions and stolen mail, there is evidence that my back door was used for entry into my home many times. I believe Bill was given a key to my home by Ryan Dillaha, and that is how my home was illegally entered. I changed my locks 17 times within a year and a half, but home invasions kept happening. The only property that has a view of the entry to my three-season room off the back of my house is Arvid's. Because he was part of the stalking from his property already, I have reason to believe that he may be aware of the home invasions and who performed them. Arvid took me to court for a stalking case in November 2020, which was resolved by the formation of an agreement. I must violate the agreement now to get answers about events that have occurred in the neighborhood that he has been a part of. If he wants to take me to court over stalking again, he is going to have a tough time proving it, since I have some photographic and video evidence of being video stalked. As soon as the case was dismissed, a security camera was installed on the first floor west frame. It faces my driveway. Arvid owns a strip of land where my driveway is on the side of my home. Instead of the camera recording along his small strip of land, the camera was aimed across my driveway, recording my property, including the windows of the entire west side of my home. I violated the agreement by telling Arvid many times to remove the camera or change its angle, and he pretended like I do not even exist, honoring the agreement. 9 months passed, where I was being recorded by the security camera 24/7, which is illegal. I had to get a lawyer involved to finally get the camera issue resolved. I would have contacted his lawyers directly, but my lawyer would not provide me with that information. In all, I had to spend $4,300 to defend myself against bogus charges from a man who was stalking me. Early June 2019, 2 men from outside the neighborhood visited. They were parked on the street when I pulled in the driveway, just returning from a trip to Washington, D.C. They claimed they were Secret Service, asked a few questions, and left telling me I should see a psychologist, which is illegal to do. It's giving medical advice. I told them there was harassment from Arvid, but they said they were going to talk to other neighbors instead and walked over to Patty's house. Patty let the 2 con artists into her home, and they stayed for over a half hour. I learned in July 2021 through 45 911 transcripts that Patty was lied to about both my arrest record and having met with the FBI. Other false information was shared. According to Patty in the recording, the men told her that I got in trouble for what was on my computer, and that they followed me by car from Washington, D.C. I've been trying desperately since July to get additional information from her about what else the 2 men said. But because I called her out on being a bigot, she has refused to respond to my requests for help and has lied, saying she will read my correspondences. She also lied, claiming to my fraternity brothers that we were close friends. The only thing we have been are cordial neighbors. I suspect that she played up having a close relationship to me to make others assume that she has correct information about my past. I know Patty was scammed by the 2 men who visited her, and the police may have told her to ignore me about events in the neighborhood. To this day, she still believes the men are from the government, and they are not. Officer Lutz even says so in our phone conversation. I suspect the 2 men, to create a cover for themselves, told Patty not to tell anything they discussed to me. In addition to everything that has happened, she also hosted a neighborhood-wide meeting about me I learned about by walking around the block while the meeting occurred. I heard the same conversation come out of several homes during the meeting. At one property on Mimring, a woman said through an open window, "He's coming," as I approached the property on the street. A garage light flickered off and on as I passed the driveway. I was the only person in the street, and no cars were approaching her home. Patty also had neck care come to her home to complete stays of detention paperwork numerous times, and held meetings with 6 neighbors on 2 separate occasions. In short, twice, men from outside the neighborhood told lies about me that are believed by all of you who decided to do your own neighborhood police investigation on me over nothing I have done illegally. The source of the group using electronic harassment comes from either Etta or Patty. I need to know right now who these people are and how to contact them. It uses microwave radiation, and I am being slow killed with cancer-causing waves. Because actual stalking occurred from both properties, I have reason to believe a connection with the electronic harassment is through Eda's work at Veterans Affairs or Patty's love for authority figures to purposefully create harm in my life, butting in. The weapon is owned by both the military and CIA, who has authorized illegally the surveillance program to be used by FBI, DHS, and the DEA for illegal surveillance of innocent Americans, like myself, feigning an investigation and abusing their position of authority for nefarious purposes. I'm not messing around. My life is being shortened because of the silent treatment from everyone. This neighborhood is going to get back to normal, damn it, and no more secrets. Whether or not you believe my experience with electronic harassment has no bearing on getting resolution to the profoundly genuine problem we have going on in the neighborhood. Stop discriminating against me and using a medical diagnosis to hide behind to avoid being responsible for the damage you have created in my life. I have journaled my entire experience since November 22nd, 2018 to the present. I am still writing it as events unfold. I plan to publish my 9 volumes of my journal. If you would like to be a hero in writing and life, I suggest you start cooperating with me. I have even offered a percentage of the profit to those who help end my horrible experience caused by neighbors because they were lied to by outside of the neighborhood people, believed them instead of me. You can view and read the online version. It is all about all of you and my experience with resources and evidence of what R&M is on Facebook. The page is Tier Justice, Equity, and Equality. I am the most honest man you will ever meet. None of you know who I really am, but you are finding out now. Below are specific details about help I need from each of you to end the ongoing harassment. Rachel, who is moved at this point, who said the lie that I smoke pot, who said the lie that I do or did opioids. Patty, the federal official's identity who helped you, what else the 2 men told you, what you think is going on at my property and why it concerns you. Is there a connection to Eda to the surveillance of me? Who is Tara from Hocking Hills who performed a wellness check on me and lives an hour away? Why you perform all those evaluations? Why did you host a neighborhood-wide meeting about me? And what did Bill and his wife tell you about me? Arvin, who is the photographer taking pictures of me? Where did the stalkers from your windows come from? Contact information of the 2 men. Why you videotaped my driveway and 3-season room for 9 months. Who you watched enter the inside of my home from my porch. Confirmation of Kathy visiting to have meetings about me. Bill, what did you, your son, and Ryan do in my home? What did you plan with Ryan to get me moved out of my home? Who met with your wife who told of illegal surveillance of me? What did Ryan say he knew about me? We were never friends. What the hell is your and your wife's problem with me? What were you doing in my backyard that morning I caught you? Wade. What did Kathy from Como say she knows about me? And Kathy's address or phone number if you know it. Edda. Who is the redhead who stalked me? Who said, that faggot, that whore, look at this video at the barbecue? Who said, tonight, we're going to get him tonight? Who nicknamed me Nature Boy at the barbecue? What information were you told about me? And who told you false information about me? Brittany and Malay. Who were the guests at both barbecues? Who was the drunkard woman at 437 Como's barbecue? Can your sons name who were at both barbecues? Claire. As a representative of local government, I am making you aware of the circumstances because I am unable to send group emails to our neighborhood Google group still. Officer Lai. Information from Coldwell Banker about my sudden disaffiliation status from September 2019, and analysis of the DNA collected of evidence of home invasions that occurred between 2017 and 2020 that include stolen property. If necessary, referral of this case to the Detective Bureau and proper procedure being followed for reporting crimes committed in the neighborhood that I have been a victim of. Officer Myers. Any background information about me from community officers that caused you to not take me seriously, even though I supplied ample narrative of crimes in my neighborhood, and why you profiled me. Officer Hicks. Any background information about me from community officers, and why it took 13 phone call messages for you to return my call about crime and my attempts to report it. Officer Connor. What information Patty Ryan told you about me, and what information you shared with her about me, like my medical records, a violation of my HIPAA rights. Did I have evidence of a neighbor telling the information to a 911 operator? Also, why you lied to Patty saying that you had to carry me out of my home during one of your response runs. Patty kept pestering the police, Mobile Crisis Response Unit, and Netcare to have me forcibly removed from my home, a total of 22 times in the last 4 years. It is only because of these calls from the same neighbor that I have a mental illness diagnosis at all. In closing, I feel very strongly that Ryan and or the two men who visited Patty claimed I had a mental illness. I did not have a mental illness diagnosis at the time they may have claimed it. If someone said, he's crazy, it is possible that the statement was taken literally instead of figuratively by neighbors. The group that illegally surveillanced me used constant harassment to get me to angrily respond to nothing in my environment. I did my best to keep my torture from becoming known by never speaking outdoors and only inside the privacy of my own home. My anger is not a symptom of a mental illness, but directed towards guilty neighbors for having created my current circumstance and ignoring me. Only 1% of the world population has my diagnosis, and a large majority of the diagnoses occur prior to age of 25. I was diagnosed at age 45. The only reason that I have a diagnosis is the number of times I have been admitted to the hospital, and they do not believe that neighbors are doing the things I have caught them doing. There is only one police report on file, and it was never investigated because the neighborhood officers refused to let me file reports of these crimes over a 3.5-year period. It is my belief that officers fueled an idea that I am to be ignored because of a diagnosis that they created by pink slipping me. I believe the government connection to the neighborhood spread that I was given a diagnosis so that neighbors would call authorities often and instructed neighbors to call. One day I was simply sitting quietly in my front yard and I heard, "Should we call the police?" 4 days of detention were performed within a 6-week period in the fall of 2020. A fellow neighbor even informed me that she knew of a hospitalization before it happened. Who told neighbors to abuse the police's authority, net care services, and the court system by repeatedly contacting them with embellished reports of my behavior? The goal of the group, using surveillance, is to have me moved out of the neighborhood, and their technique to do that is to claim to everyone that I am not competent and cannot live independently. That is what a stay of detention is. I need to learn the source of the setup, to have a diagnosis, to then attempt to forcibly remove me from my home and the neighborhood permanently. I've never had a mental illness in my life until neighbors called. Rem Milligan, 434 Midgard Road, and 614-506-1924. That's what Bill's missing out on. Ignore, ignore, ignore. I, I don't know what to say. As soon as I get a lawyer, though, he'll be notified. And I'm having a very difficult time getting a lawyer because of the mental diagnosis. So I get fucked by neighbors, and then I continue to get fucked by not getting representation. And all the entities are trying to scramble, making something happen in order to avoid getting in trouble. It's a really fucked up situation, and this is not the way anybody should live their life. I'm through with the bullshit. I need to move on. But I can't do that until all this is cleared up. And as of today, I had a neighbor run by with his little girl on a bicycle, yell the word Satan. He's an ignorant man who believes lies and who hates with no reason. Of course, if I respond, then the whole neighborhood will busily call the police. What's going on is extreme abuse and harassment using the authority. I think the authorities believe Patty's government. They're con artists. And all I want is to be free. Instead, I live a daily life of slavery, and everybody in my neighborhood ignores me, and more lies get spread. What on earth are you doing, neighbors? This has to end.